Well, hello everyone. Auburndale Sub Productions here with another video. This one, I should warn you, is going to be a little bit depressing, so viewer discretion is advised. In this video, we will be at Andersonville National Park, which is located in Andersonville, Georgia. For those of you not aware of it, Andersonville is an old Civil War POW camp that was constructed by the Confederacy during the Civil War to house Union POW soldiers that were captured during the Civil War. Most of these soldiers were captured in 1864, and over 40,000 at its peak were housed and kept at this POW camp, which was only designed for, I believe, 14,000 soldiers. So the conditions at this camp were really, really, really bad. And let me tell you, this trip to Andersonville was a very sombering experience. So I hope you enjoy the video, and may the memory of those lost live on. So what we have here is a list of actual people that perished at Andersonville on the very same day that me and my good friend Bone Valley Railfan Production visited at Andersonville, and obviously these people perished back in 1864 at the prison camp. Now, the following pictures were taken inside the National Prisoner of War Museum, which is located right next to the actual prison grounds, which is located right outside of the museum. This demonstrates one of the methods of punishment used on prisoners who committed any rule infractions at the prison camp. Now, the following pictures here were taken at the graveyard portion of the POW camp, and I have to warn you, it might be a little disturbing to others, so viewer discretion is advised. Now, from what we were told at Andersonville, some of the graves at Andersonville have as much as 5 soldiers stacked on top one of another on the burial grounds here in Andersonville. So, unfortunately, at Andersonville, there's quite a few unknown U.S. soldier graves at Andersonville. During the Civil War, there was no dog tagging system invented yet. So, the identities of many soldiers that perished in battle during the Civil War were lost. And as you can see here, a vast number of graves from the Civil War cover for as far as the eye can see. So this is the graveyard here in Andersonville. These are more later war veterans, but here, over there, this is all Civil War deaths. And there's, like I said, there's more over there. That just boggles the mind, and it's just really a harrowing area to be. So, I'm glad I went, but I feel very sad for the people that we lost. So I should clarify there's a good amount of soldiers from the Civil War that did not actually die at Andersonville that were buried here from other nearby battlefields. In total, over 12,920 Union soldiers died at Andersonville. And I should also mention that no actual battle took place here at Andersonville. This was strictly a prisoner of war camp constructed by the Confederacy for Union prisoners of war captured in the year of 1864. And this prisoner of war camp was never liberated either. The guards ended up abandoning their posts after the surrender of Robert E. Lee at the end of the Civil War and released all the prisoners. And at the cemetery and at the prison camp itself, there are monuments commemorating all the soldiers' states that these soldiers are from who perished here at Andersonville. Now, this grave caught my eye because of the name Robert E. Lee Jr. Now, I don't know if there's any relation to the Confederate General Robert E. Lee, but as you can see here, veterans from other wars are also buried here at the cemetery. Now, as the story goes, at the prison camp in August of 1864, a severe rainstorm hit the prison camp and caused a underground spring to gusher water out from underground onto the prison grounds, giving the prisoners drink through, as a lot of people believe, through divine intervention. Here's the marker describing the events that led up to this spring gushing up from underground. The spring is known as the Providence Spring. Now, adjacent to the actual POW camp was a fort known as Star Fort, which purpose was to protect the POW camp approaches from any Union cavalry unit that may attempt to attack the POW camp and to deter any prisoners from fleeing and escaping from the POW camp. In fact, there was a couple of artillery pieces that were pointed directly at the POW camp to deter any prisoner who may have thought of escaping and fleeing from the camp. It also housed all the prisoner guards and the soldiers that were stationed at the fort. In the entire course of operation at Andersonville in 1864, a total of 3 different hospitals were crudely constructed and operated at separate times during the entire course of operation at the POW camp at Andersonville. Crudely constructed, conditions were horrid, ripe with disease. Many a Union soldier met a horrid and agonizing death here, with some choosing to remain with their comrades till their passing. For many, the hospital would be the very last thing they would see before they met their end. Also located on the cemetery grounds at Andersonville are statues and commemorative plaques honoring POWs from other previous wars that the U.S. has fought. Now, unfortunately, at Andersonville, there was a lot of theft and other crimes that occurred at the prison camp amongst the Union soldiers. In particular, 6 individuals were found to be guilty of theft and stealing from their fellow comrades at the prison camp, and were caught and summarily hanged for their crimes. They were also buried separately from the rest of the prisoners that died at Andersonville. Now, getting back to the actual prison itself, here's a monument commemorating the actual site where the stockade was located at Andersonville. On a side note, members of the 1st All-Black Union Regiment, the 54th Massachusetts, were actually imprisoned here at Andersonville. Even the Commandant himself could not escape the stench and filth that became of Andersonville. They could barely control the situation and quickly grew out of their control. The sinks, or the latrines at Andersonville, which was upstream from the drinking water. However, the area became stagnant with swamp, and this was the source of disease for many of the diseases that plagued the prisoners here at Andersonville. Here's a mock-up of what the stockade would have looked like back in 1864, and also the guard shacks known as pigeon roasts that oversee the entire stockade at the prison camp in Andersonville. We also have some crude tents and other makeshift shelter that the prisoners would have built at Andersonville to keep out of the elements. Here's a wall mural and some statues located right outside the POW museum, right as you head on to the actual prison grounds, which I thought was interesting and I wanted to include in this video. Here's a final look of the actual prison grounds taken from right outside the POW museum. And here's a placard showing what it was like to be at Andersonville. And in reality, no words really can describe how it was to be at the Civil War POW camp at Andersonville. It was that horrendous. After leaving Andersonville, me and my good friend Bone Valley Railfan Production went to Macon, and we also made a stop at Fort Valley where we saw these neat engines sitting at the rail yard there. Upon arriving at Riley Glover Stadium in Macon, Georgia, we found what we were looking for, a trio of standard cab Dash 8s, and we also saw the steam engine sitting in the park right next to the stadium. Soon after that, it was time to bid Macon adieu and return back to Cordele, where we caught a CSX power move heading south towards Waycross through Cordele. And that concludes the sightseeing portion of this video series and our visit to Macon and that bonus trip to Fort Valley where we saw those 3 Jeep units sitting in the yard there. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope this gives you a new perspective of the Civil War and all the soldiers that died during it. May all the soldiers that died during the Civil War rest in peace and fulfill the promise of this nation.